The Battle of Iwo Jima was a major battle in World War II, marking a pivotal moment in the Pacific theater. It took place on a small volcanic island in the Pacific Ocean, known for its rugged and unforgiving terrain. Iwo Jima was only 8 square miles, but it had great strategic importance for both the United States and Japan. The island had airfields that the United States needed to capture to gain a foothold closer to the Japanese mainland. These airfields could be used to launch bombing raids on Japan, significantly shortening the distance for American bombers. The battle lasted for 36 grueling days, from February 19th to March 26, 1945. It was one of the bloodiest battles in Marine Corps history, with heavy casualties on both sides. The island's terrain was difficult, characterized by steep slopes and loose volcanic ash. Volcanic ash made it hard to dig trenches or foxholes, leaving soldiers exposed to enemy fire. The Japanese had spent months fortifying the island, preparing for the inevitable American assault. They built a network of tunnels and bunkers, creating a formidable defense system. These defenses made it hard for the Marines to advance, turning every inch of progress into a deadly struggle. The Marines were prepared to fight, having undergone rigorous training for the invasion. They had trained for months for the invasion, knowing the challenges that lay ahead. The Marines knew that the battle would be difficult, but they were determined to win, driven by a sense of duty and camaraderie. They were fighting for their country and for each other, embodying the spirit of brotherhood and sacrifice. The Japanese were equally determined to defend Iwo Jima, understanding its strategic importance. They were fighting for their homeland, willing to sacrifice everything to protect it. They knew that if they lost Iwo Jima, the Americans would be one step closer to invading Japan, making the battle a crucial turning point in the war. The Marines faced a determined enemy on Iwo Jima. The Japanese soldiers were well-trained and well-equipped. They fought fiercely. The Marines landing on the beach were met with a barrage of gunfire. The Marines were also under constant threat from Japanese snipers. These snipers were hidden in caves and tunnels. They could pick off Marines from a distance. The Marines were constantly on edge, never knowing when or where the next attack would come from. Despite the dangers, the Marines fought bravely. They knew that they were fighting for a just cause. They were determined to defeat the Japanese and win the war. The Marines also relied on each other for support. They knew that they could count on their buddies to have their backs. The Marines faced terrible conditions. The island was hot and humid. The volcanic ash was everywhere, making it difficult to breathe. The Marines were constantly covered in sweat and grime. Despite the conditions, the Marines never gave up. One of the most iconic moments of the Battle of Iwo Jima was the flag raising on Mount Suribachi. On the 5th day of the battle, a group of Marines reached the summit of the mountain. They raised an American flag. The flag raising was a major morale booster for the Marines. It showed that they were making progress. The flag became a symbol of hope and victory. The photograph of the flag raising became one of the most famous images of World War II. It has been reproduced countless times in books, magazines, and movies. The flag raising on Mount Suribachi did not mean that the battle was over. The Marines still faced fierce resistance from the Japanese, but the flag gave them hope. It reminded them of what they were fighting for. The flag raising was a pivotal moment in the battle. It showed the world that the United States was determined to win the war in the Pacific. The Marines faced many challenges as they fought to capture Iwo Jima. The Japanese had heavily fortified the island. The Marines had to fight their way through a maze of tunnels and bunkers. The Japanese were experts in camouflage. They would often pop up out of nowhere to attack the Marines. The Marines used a variety of weapons and tactics to defeat the Japanese. They used flamethrowers to clear out bunkers. They used grenades and explosives to destroy enemy fortifications. The Marines also relied on close-quarters combat. They used bayonets and knives to kill the enemy. The Marines were supported by naval gunfire and air support. American warships bombarded Japanese positions. American planes dropped bombs on enemy targets. The Marines also used tanks and artillery to support their advance. Despite their best efforts, the Marines suffered heavy casualties. The Japanese fought to the death. They were determined to inflict as many casualties as possible. Section 5. Japanese defense tunnels, bunkers, and tenacity. The Japanese had a well-planned defense for Iwo Jima. They had anticipated the American invasion and meticulously prepared their defenses to make the island a fortress. They knew that the Americans were coming and they were prepared. Every soldier was trained and ready to defend their positions with unwavering resolve. The Japanese had built a network of underground tunnels and bunkers. These tunnels were not just simple holes in the ground, they were complex and strategically designed. These fortifications were connected by miles of tunnels. The intricate network allowed for efficient movement and communication between different parts of the island. The tunnels allowed the Japanese to move troops and supplies without being seen. This gave them a significant tactical advantage, enabling surprise attacks and quick reinforcements. The bunkers were heavily armed with machine guns and artillery. These fortifications were strategically placed to maximize their defensive capabilities. The Japanese used these bunkers to pour fire down on the advancing Marines. The well-placed bunkers created deadly kill zones that were difficult to breach. The Japanese also used suicide attacks against the Americans. These desperate measures were a testament to their determination to defend the island at all costs. These attacks were known as banzai charges. They were often launched in the dead of night, catching the American forces off guard. Japanese soldiers would charge at the American lines with bayonets and swords, often yelling banzai. This created a terrifying and chaotic battlefield scenario. The Japanese defense was very effective. Their strategic use of terrain and fortifications made the battle extremely challenging for the American forces. They inflicted heavy casualties on the Marines. The relentless defense and the harsh conditions of the island took a significant toll on the American troops. The tunnels and bunkers made it very difficult for the Marines to advance. Every inch of ground was hard-fought, with the Japanese defenders making the Americans pay dearly for their progress. The Japanese defenders were determined to fight to the death. Their resolve was unbreakable, and they were willing to sacrifice everything for their homeland. They believed that it was an honor to die for their country. This belief fueled their tenacity and made them formidable opponents. The Japanese fought with great courage and tenacity, but they were ultimately defeated. Despite their fierce resistance, the overwhelming American firepower and resources proved too much. The Americans had more men, more weapons, and more supplies. This superiority in numbers and resources eventually led to their victory on Iwo Jima. Section 6. Victory and Sacrifice, the Cost of Taking Iwo Jima. After 36 days of fighting, the Americans finally captured Iwo Jima. The battle was a major victory for the Allies. It gave them a strategic airbase that they needed to launch bombing raids on Japan. The victory came at a high price. Over 6,800 Marines were killed in action. Another 20,000 were wounded. The Battle of Iwo Jima was one of the bloodiest battles in Marine Corps history. The Marines who fought there showed great courage and sacrifice. They faced a determined enemy and brutal conditions. They fought for their country and for each other. The battle had a profound impact on the Marines who fought there. It left many of them with physical and emotional scars. It also left them with a deep sense of pride and camaraderie. The Marines who fought at Iwo Jima knew that they had been a part of something special. The battle is still remembered today as a symbol of the courage and sacrifice of the United States Marine Corps. Section 7. Iwo Jima's Legacy, a turning point in the Pacific War. The Battle of Iwo Jima was a significant turning point in the Pacific War. It was one of the bloodiest battles in the Pacific theater, lasting from February 19th to March 26, 1945. It showed that the Japanese were willing to fight to the death for their homeland. The Japanese soldiers were deeply entrenched in a network of bunkers and tunnels, making the battle even more grueling. It also showed that the United States was willing to pay any price to defeat Japan. The determination and bravery of the U.S. Marines were evident as they faced fierce resistance. The battle also had a major impact on the course of the war. It shifted the momentum in favor of the Allies, and demonstrated the strategic importance of capturing key locations. The capture of Iwo Jima gave the United States a strategic airbase. This airbase was crucial for launching further operations in the Pacific. This airbase was used to launch bombing raids on Japan. The proximity of Iwo Jima to the Japanese mainland made it an ideal location for these operations. These bombing raids helped to cripple Japan's war effort. The destruction caused by these raids significantly weakened Japan's ability to continue the war. The capture of Iwo Jima also boosted American morale. The iconic image of the U.S. flag being raised on Mount Suribachi became a symbol of hope and determination. It showed that the United States was winning the war in the Pacific. The victory at Iwo Jima was a clear indication that the tide had turned in favor of the Allies. The battle had a profound impact on the relationship between the United States and Japan. It highlighted the intense and brutal nature of the conflict between the two nations. The battle showed the world the determination of the Japanese soldiers and the high cost of victory for the Americans. The heavy casualties on both sides underscored the ferocity of the battle. It served as a grim prelude to a potential invasion of mainland Japan, a prospect that weighed heavily on the minds of military planners. The lessons learned from Iwo Jima would shape future military strategies and decisions. Section 8. Reflections on Valor, the Enduring Spirit of the Iwo Jima Marines. The Marines who fought at Iwo Jima were ordinary men who faced extraordinary circumstances. They came from all walks of life, but they were united by their commitment to their country and to each other. They faced a determined enemy and some of the fiercest fighting of the war. They endured unimaginable hardships, but they never gave up. The Marines who fought at Iwo Jima showed great courage, determination, and sacrifice. The battle was a testament to the human spirit. The Marines who fought there were an inspiration to their fellow Americans and to people all over the world. The battle is a reminder of the human cost of war. It is also a reminder of the importance of courage, sacrifice, and freedom. Section 9. Remembrance and Respect, Honoring the Sacrifice. The Battle of Iwo Jima is a reminder of the sacrifices made by those who fought for our freedom. It is important to remember the sacrifices of those who fought and died at Iwo Jima. We must never forget their courage and their sacrifice. The battle serves as a reminder of the horrors of war and the importance of peace. We must learn from the past and work to create a more peaceful future. We must honor the veterans of Iwo Jima by telling their stories and by remembering the sacrifices they made. We must also honor them by working to build a better world for future generations.